Welcome back to a professional match of StarCraft 2. Now what I've got for you today is a Terran versus Zerg, where we find ourselves on the map Eternal Empire. Spawning here in the bottom left hand corner with the red Terran SCVs. From France, we have none other than Clem. Clem, he's only 17 years old, but already considered to be one of the strongest Terran players in the world. I'm really curious to see how he's gonna do in 2020. His opponent though, a long-time tournament player. One of the most successful Zerg players in the world, we have none other than soO. So I know I've said this in the past, right? But soO, he's the king of getting second place. And in a way, that's a bit of a mean title. Realistically though, I mean, his prize money has piled up to a pretty healthy amount over the course of his career. But since there are a lot of new viewers, right? I've made a bit of a list. By the way, I decided to go for a pool first. Although I think that was probably a 16 spawning pool, so likely won't be all too aggressive. So for those of you wondering, right, when it comes to getting second place at premier tournaments, soO has gotten second place at GSL Season 3, 2013, GSL Season 1, 2014, GSL Season 2, 2014, DreamHack Stockholm, 2014, GSL Season 3, 2014, IEM Gamescom 2015, GSL Season 1, 2017, GSL Season 2, 2017, WCS Global Finals 2017, and then finally, at IEM Katowice 2019, so about a year ago, he ended up winning the tournament for $150,000. But there's no doubt, though, that soO is one of the most successful tournament players in the world, yet he's very well known for getting second place. I've got this theory, and feel free to disagree with me, right? But say soO would have won every single one of those tournaments I just mentioned, or at the very least half of them. People would probably consider him to be one of the most successful StarCraft 2 players ever, if not the most successful StarCraft 2 player ever. I don't know what the math would add up to, but I'm actually curious to know if he would have won all of them, what his total earnings would be. I'm pretty sure he would be the top earned player of all time. There's no denying, though, that soO has done very well for himself. I mean, IEM Katowice, like I said, was $150,000. Getting second place at the Global Finals is also, I think, like $120,000 or something. So everything obviously adds up. But, yeah, I'm glad that soO finally managed to break the curse last year, because it was getting a little bit sad every time he made it to the Grand Finals, especially in the GSL Code S, right? That's such a hard tournament to win. He just, you know, crumbled under the pressure. And I guess after getting second place like 4 or 5 times, at some point, you're gonna just be so demoralized. Your biggest enemy at that point is gonna be your own mind. Anyways, curious to see though how soO is gonna go up right here against Clem. So Clem, he's a very new player to the StarCraft 2 pro gaming scene, primarily because of his age. So while there's a little bit of a skirmish going on right now for the third base and a little bit of harassment here and there, I mean, it's ZVT. You've seen this all a million times before. Neither player is going all too aggressive. I just found this nice little snippet on Clem's Wikipedia page. So in April 2016, Clem entered the European qualifiers for DreamHack Open Tours, which doubled as the 2016 WCS Spring Circuit Championship. He managed to finish in a qualifying spot. However, since he was only 14 years old and WCS rules did not allow players under the age of 16 to participate, he had to lose his seat. He lost his spot because he wasn't old enough, despite qualifying. That's a little bit sad, right, in a way? But anyways, Clem, he's very, very good. As if we're making a video, on a League Elec, he's considered to be the rank 17 in the world. Now, obviously, he is the rank 17 without actually ever having won, like, a big tournament. So you gotta always take that with a grain of salt, but there's no denying that he is improving very quickly. And I'm curious to see what this year is going to look like for him, as he opens up right here with what seems to be a mech-based opener. Going for the armory here. You know what? I think this is not actually a mech-based opener necessarily. I think this is gonna be a Hellbat opener. You don't really want to take any damage though on any of these Hellbats. Interesting fact about Hellions. Hellions are considered to be mechanical. Hellbats, however, are biological and mechanical, meaning that Hellions can only be repaired, but Hellbats can be repaired and then also healed up by a medevac at the same time. There you go, there's your StarCraft trivia for today, which is probably the reason why we have that medevac now boosting across, with apparently a couple of Marines inside of them as well. The armory is done. There's, yeah, a Roach Warren coming up, but that's not going to be in time. Clem, you're gonna probably be able to do some damage here. I mean, it's mostly just going to be Queens and then also a couple of Zerglings. Not really what you want against Hellbats. Uncommon build though, this is not something we see all too often lately. Still, though, that's quite a lot of queens. Let's see if Clem can get into a good position. Tries to get on top of all of these units. Probably will try and pick up some of the weakened units as well. Nicely done so far, though. Trying to bait some of that fire as well with the medevac. Once again, Zerglings, I mean, they are spawning, but they get picked off so very quickly by those Hellbats. Bunch of queens have already gone down, and this is a very good amount of harassment. Although, yeah, I was gonna say, start roasting some of these drones! Oh, God! Oh, God! Close your eyes, Zerg players. Okay, well, that was 7, actually. I would have lost my entire mineral line. I would have lost at least 14, I would say. I would have lost at least double that. Clem, though, is going to end up losing most of those Hellbats, so that's a bit of a shame. But honestly, the Hellbat opener is mostly just a stepping stone to go towards a more comfortable mid-game. Looks like, by the way, he is going to go for the mech transition after all. So with the additional factories now coming up, he's going to make use of that armory that he's already made. And he's going to be able to continue putting on a little bit of pressure. Now, I think the medevac actually might end up going down as well. There it is. And that means that these Hellbats have a one-way trip to hell. Bets. Wait, no. That doesn't work. But anyways, you get what I mean. In the meantime, though, apparently also a Banshee in the natural mineral line. Overseer is coming up. Luckily for soO, we did have the clarity of mind to go up towards the lair already. Pretty easy to forget that while you're under so much harassment. Looks like in the grand scheme of things, yeah, a lot of drones have gone down. But you always got to take this with a grain of salt, right? So when it comes to units lost, you can see that there's way more resources lost so far for the Zerg player. But he's also been mining a lot. And he can obviously power out those workers many at a time, compared to at the very least what Terran can do. You can't make that many SCVs at once. I mean, he's got 3 command centers right now, which means he can make 3 of those at once. It's very easy, though, to get back into it at this point in the game if you are a Zerg player. Now, those Banshees here, they're going to be pretty good. They're going to be able to escort those roaches on back home. Get out of here, boys. This is not the time to be over here. You don't have any of that anti-air support. Speaking of anti-air support, Spire right now coming up here for the Zerg. Okay, cool. So, Terran Mech, I mean, if you've been watching the cast over the last couple of weeks, you've seen that Terran Mech has become very popular. TVZ seems to be about, I would say like 80% mech right now, compared to like 20% bio. And pretty much all of the 20% bio games that I've casted were all from Cure. I think Special actually did a bio game once as well, but most of the Zerg players right now are going up against that Terran Mech-based army. It seems to be the flavor of the month. Terran bio didn't get nerfed or whatever. It's just that Terran Mech got buffed indirectly by Zerg units getting nerfed, but also directly with, for example, the Thor now being able to outrange the Brute Lord. Alright, so second armory coming up as well. There's a few mutas coming up. So mutas are pretty interesting in this scenario. I guess the Muta is right here primarily to get rid of that Banshee for now and maybe to put on a little bit of harassment. I don't think soO really wants to commit to any more of them. Probably just sort of treats them as anti-air right now. Probably will add on a lot of roaches here and maybe transition towards that swarm host style that we've seen a lot of the Zerg players go for recently as well. The nice thing about Mutas is that they allow you map control. So right now that the Mutas are out, the Terran player is going to have to sit back. I mean, obviously, he can get pretty aggressive here as well, but most of the time, at least historically speaking, this means that Terran is going to be pinned back, trying to make sure that they don't lose all too many SCVs. Is there even a... He's not even going to start up any missiles. Okay, he is. Okay, I was going to say. Are there even engineering bays anywhere? Can you even make a missile turret? But it looks like he is going to be able to defend that just fine as these missile turrets finish. But you notice right now on the minimap, it is the Terran player who's sitting back after basically being out there for like the first 7 or so minutes of this match. This gives the Zerg quite a lot of wiggle room, so soO seems to want to go already up towards the Hive. Probably for Vipers, I would say. And actually, getting a siege tank would be huge. There you go. Getting a siege tank is nice, because obviously he can get out of here very easily as well. Not really take any damage. Maybe get one more SCV. There you go. Nicely done. Yeah, so the nice thing about Mutas is that they don't really fight very well in straight-up battles. They're really only good at harassment, but also at taking map control and forcing your opponent back. So, Mutas, they're one of those units that if you're really good at the game, you can get a lot of value out of them. If you suck at the game, yeah, good luck. They're really difficult to control properly. You can see right there the APM required. soO is spamming like, I don't know, 20 buttons a second right now in order to control these units properly. There's a lot of multitasking required, and, well, let's see how he's going to be able to fare against this battle mech-based army. Love the battle mech. It's one of the things we saw Maru do actually as well against Scarlet very recently. Very cool. Woo. So close. Always dodging those biles. Like, you have to anticipate where they're gonna land and where your army is gonna be located as well. So, very low amount of siege tanks. Obviously, one of those tanks was killed earlier by those mutas, which, well, you can see it was actually, it's actually a pretty big deal. One Thor right here in the mix as well, but apparently the swarm wants to engage. Looks like that siege tank will be picked off very easily. Mutas are spread out nicely, so the Thor doesn't all just kill them at once. Looks like this army will be pushed back. Centrifugal hooks, though, the Baneling speed upgrade not done yet. But I think that most of it will be able to survive. Yeah, Banelings can be microed against a little bit easier right now. And with that new Big Daddy Thor joining the fray as well. Well, you know what? I was going to say that these mutas would likely die here, but they're still doing really well. Really well, as in like 2 hit points. But, I mean, mutas regen really, really quickly. Alrighty. So, wow. Ha! Triple Evo. This looks like a Lowko build right here. I'm a big fan of going triple Evo, but I've never seen a pro gamer pull it off since like the Legacy of the Void beta. Anyways, big fight once again. Siege Tank's in a very awkward position. The one Liberator, though, shooting away at all of those Zerg units with ease. Looks like the mutas will join as well. Corrosive Biles are gonna miss, I think, but eventually all of this does get cleaned up. A couple of Hellions have made their way towards the mineral line. Even with their blue flame upgrade, though, they managed to only get 4 kills because there were only 4 drones right over here as well to actually kill. He's going now also for the double hatchery inside of the main. What a cool way of playing this. So, I know a lot of players are always very hesitant to go triple Evo just because no pros really do it. I also know a lot of players are very hesitant to building multiple macro hatcheries because pros generally don't do it. Well, look at this, guys. soO. He's like happy with the amount of drones that he's got. He's decided to, you know what, I can keep on throwing away units. I can also go triple upgrades so I can make whatever unit I like. Very cool. So, do you think we have a little bit of wiggle or a little bit of time right here, a little bit of wiggle room to talk? Couple weeks ago at this point, I casted a game where soO went up against Zest, if I'm not mistaken, in a Zerg versus Protoss. And in that game, he ended up making Ultralisks. Yeah, so he's once again making the Ultralisk Cavern right now against Terran Mech as well. At the time, I was making fun of him in a way for going Ultralisks, but it turns out the idea of him going Ultras was not so much for the Ultras to do anything, because Ultras kind of suck, as we all know. I mean, unless they're like in very specific situations, like for example against like Terran Bio and stuff. But I mean, this is Terran Mech we're talking about. The reason why he ended up going for those Ultras, though, was not so much to kill the opponent with them, but then to go for a tech switch later on that ended up killing the opponent, at the very least, you know, the army. I mean, I don't want to spoil the game for you. You can go ahead and check that out. I'll post a link in the information box in the top right. But basically, the only reason why he ended up going for the Ultralisk Cavern was to force a reaction from the opponent and then counter that army after losing it with his reinforcements. Now, whether or not that went well, I won't spoil it for you. I won't spoil it for you. But it was a cool idea. I wonder if this is a similar idea. I mean, why else would you go triple Evo and start up like all upgrades other than like, you know, if you want to go for that unit composition? Very interesting. So there's also now, Infestors coming out? You can see here Zerg players still very much so experimenting with how they can beat Terran Mech. I've casted a lot of Terran Mech recently, and let's be honest, not all of the Zerg players are doing a particularly great job. Once again, though, very aggressive move out here. The Banelings just roll into a bunch of siege tanks, but since they were clumped up, not the worst trade in the world. Ultras right now are coming up. There's a bunch of Infestors busy accumulating energy. This is very interesting. I don't usually see players switching to watch Ultralisks, especially against Terran Mech. So, okay, let's talk about Ultras for a little bit. Ultras are very good when your opponent is playing, say, for example, Marine Tank. If they haven't made the transition towards Liberators or Ghosts yet, Ultras are absolutely phenomenal. Ultras can also be pretty good in Zerg versus Zerg if you opened up, say, like Ling, Bane, and Muta. And then, you know, you go up against someone who, say, wants to go for Lurkers. Sometimes you can overwhelm them with Ultra numbers because you've been able to contain them. But Ultras really shine in very specific situations. And in general, they're really not that good. I mean, we should be renaming them to not so Ultralisk, okay? Mediocre Lisk. Like, we need something something to title them a little bit differently. Because honestly, I've seen more games where the Ultras achieve absolutely nothing than I've seen games where the Ultras actually do something useful. They're probably the weakest Zerg unit right now. I think that's fair to say. Maybe even the weakest StarCraft 2 unit in general. Although, I can imagine saying such things will spark a little bit of a debate in the comment section down below. But honestly, I haven't really seen anyone really make good use of Mutas. Or of Ultras, rather. Now, we'll see what soO wants to do here, because it looks to me like he wants to run into this siege tank ball right over here with the Ultralisks. I guess it can, like... Oh my god. It can achieve something, but that's such an expensive army, though, to lose for the Zerg player. Well, you know what? Since this is only part of the Terran force and a lot of the units are not quite in this engagement, it looks like he will be able to break open at least this entrenched position from the Terran player. Looks like the command center will probably be boiled down as well. There it goes. And at the very least, soO managed to get a decent enough trade right there. Let's have a look at the cost efficiency so far. So up to this point, and we can probably compare this in a little bit so we can actually have like a good idea about this, because I honestly don't know what to expect here. At this point, I would say, yeah, the trades have been pretty even, right? Pretty even, a little bit more lost here for the Terran player, but all things considered, relatively even. Both of them right now, though, are transitioning towards a really large economy. Clem is actually now adding on ghosts. I love it. I wonder if this is a response to the Ultralisks, or if it's just something he wants to add on. So, when you think about it, right? I think ghosts are pretty much like the perfect late-game transition for Terran. Because Zerg will pretty much always either transition towards spellcasters, so Ravens and Infestors, or go for Ultralisks and Brute Lords, right? Now, with Snipe and with, you know, the EMP spell, you can beat all of those late-game units of Zerg really quite nicely using the Ghosts. Now, for the longest time, I've heard a lot of Terran players say to me that it's impossible to go for Ghosts when you play Terran Mech. Apparently, Clem thinks it is doable. I have not really seen anyone go for this kind of style, so really cool. He's even now getting himself the Ultralisk movement speed upgrade. The one that like makes them move a little bit quicker off creep. Very cool. There's also a few Infestors here. They do have Neural Parasite, which I saw on that production tab. So soO seems to want to go for his own approach when it comes to playing this matchup. Probably wants to try and see if he can neural some of these siege tanks. There we go. Beautiful move here by the South Korean Zerg player. Ghosts apparently want to run around. In the meantime, though, a scan just simply, oh my god, confirmed the positioning there of those Infestors. And burrowed or not, well, the scan doesn't really care. He just simply target fire down with the siege tanks in the back. And that attack absolutely got butchered. Okay, well, that looked amazing there for soO. That really didn't go very well. And that was even with the Ghost on a little bit of a move around over here. Maybe a tactical move around, but I think he probably expected the Zerg to wait a little bit longer before the engagement would actually start. Regardless, Clem cleaned that up very quickly. Now, obviously, we're talking about a Zerg player here. He's already remaxed by the time you get to his side of the map. Still, though, Clem is going to go on a little bit of spring cleaning, apparently. Get rid of some of that creep. As he adds on an awful lot of Ghosts, though. I was thinking maybe a couple of Ghosts for, like, you know, spellcasting purposes, but he apparently is now going up to 14 Ghosts and then Siege Tanks. Corruptors on the right-hand side. Maybe they're looking to start puking down this planetary fortress here in a little bit. We don't usually see this base taken, by the way. Not very common at all. Once again, though, yeah, with a couple of Siege Tanks apparently sitting very spread out on the creep and the Ghosts sleeping on the job, the Ultras and Lynx are just simply moving in. What a strange game! Oh my god, this is so odd. Once again, though, the Ghosts get into a pretty dire scenario. Corruptor's actually now puking indeed on that command center. Siege tanks are reinforcing this unit goal position. And I think that the planetary fortress may end up falling as well, as the Ultras and the Banes just simply run into it. I think that probably was the task that the Zerg player set out to accomplish, so he is probably gonna once again back off. But what a strange game. Normally we have Terran Bio switching into Terran Mech. Right? That's a pretty common thing that we see quite a bit. As like in the late game, Terran have more money so they can transition towards additional factories and then go like Thors and siege tanks, right? I guess we can still say that this is a Terran mech army, but it's really siege tanks, couple of Hellions, and a lot of Ghosts. Is this still Terran mech? I'm not entirely sure. Once again, here comes wave number 74. The very least, that's what it feels like. soO does not want this base mining. Now, siege tanks in a very powerful position, though. They gun down all of those units very quickly. Banelings, in the meantime, got distracted. They probably wanted to roll into those tanks instead. Looks like the command center lifted up at the last possible second. He's gonna land a mule to try and repair it. 10 HP, but yep, does stay alive. 10 hit points is all he needs, despite it burning down. The mule is gonna be the one tasked with the job of repairing it. Queens now pulled away from their hatcheries to once again bring those ultras back up to a reasonable amount of hit points. Man, StarCraft 2 is in such a sick shape right now. The new patch really has made all of the matchups so much more exciting. Here we go. The Ultras continue running down the ramp. Now, I'm still worried, man. I'm not sold on the Ultra idea. It seems so bad. I guess it's doing pretty good, though. Maybe I'm not giving Ultras enough credit, but every time I've tried playing Ultras, I mean, especially against Terran Mech, yeah, it's just bad. It just, oh my god, all of these traits. That's not a cost-efficient trade. It really doesn't get that much value. But I guess soO right now is just simply making use of his superior economy, right? So he's sitting at 74 workers versus 53 of the Terran. I think he knows that Terran doesn't have a lot of mining. So he's just simply running in attack wave after attack wave after attack wave, knowing the traits aren't going to be super efficient, but also knowing that as long as he keeps doing it and Terran doesn't get the economy back up, he's probably going to be able to outproduce them in the long run. Alright, so soO is basically trying to make every single Zerg unit. Which units did he not make? Ultralisks? Lurkers? Which is what every other Zerg player is going for right now. Everyone's going Lurkers. Everyone's going Lurker Viper, yet soO apparently is not. I mean, he's made Vipers, obviously, but he's not made any Hydras or Lurkers here, which is pretty interesting. Also, no Swarm Hosts, no Nidus Worms, but he's making most of the other Zerg units. Pretty cool. Okay, now, I've been talking a lot about the Zerg here because he's playing such a weird way. I really do want to point out as well that Clem has done an excellent job holding on here and being flexible. I think a lot of Terran players are a little rigid when it comes to their Terran Mech army. They will just go for like the siege tanks and the floors and the Hellions and all that. Love the addition of the Ghost. I really think it's great. Steady targeting is going to be phenomenal as well against these Brute Lords. You can just simply snipe them out of the sky. Goodbye, Brutes. Ooh. Well, one of them fell. I think another one took a lot of damage as well, although that one will be replaced here with some of the Queen energy. Apparently another base actually fell in the bottom right-hand corner. I ended up missing that with Ultras and Zerglings against Terran Mech. Although I don't even know if this is Terran Mech anymore. Now, I like this, though. soO has actually got a really strong position here. Like, he can, I mean, insert the Star Wars jokes, okay? They're a little bit overdone at this point. I can't help it, but he's got the higher ground, right? We all know the superiority of the higher ground. He's just gonna back up into it, and with that, deny the mining of this expansion over here. Terran really is starting to run very low on money. Now, once again, though, the Ghosts are moving forward. I think there might just be a little bit too much Zerg. I love the addition of the Spore Crawlers here as well, forcing these Ghosts to not be able to really cloak very easily. I mean, there's still an Overseer, obviously, as well, but that's pretty much all of the Ghosts gone. Nice splits there by Clem, but there's just too much Zerg. Couple of Vikings now joining the fray as well. Big Daddy Thor is coming out of that factory as well. So they're going to be able to help out when it comes to gunning down those Brutes. At the very least, force soO to back off and maybe now allow Clem to reacquire this base. What a battle. But once again, right, you can see right here, economically speaking, Terran just simply doesn't have that many workers anymore. And once again, a bunch of the workers have gone down. Zerg is not trading efficiently, but he's mining more, and therefore he can afford to trade inefficiently, knowing that Terran will have to make a desperation move. And honestly, this kind of feels like a desperation move right now, because Clem barely has the units to hold on to any of these bases. He needs to secure them. He needs to secure them. The downside, obviously, of playing Terran Mech is that you can't really get too mobile. What I would love to see Clem do is send in more Hellion harassments. Now, there's a lot of static defense set up as well, but I think that's probably what Maru would be doing at this point. Go for a lot more harassments towards the bottom left, despite it being very expensive. Maybe switch back towards, like, say, Cyclones or something like that as well. At the very least, that's what he seemed to be doing against Scarlet. Alright, well, Thor's phenomenal against Brutes. Vikings also very helpful. Bottom right-hand corner seems to stay alive again as well. Planetary Fortress gets more fin. Oh, we gotta be careful though. There's a lot of Zerglings coming in for the reinforcement. Now that the siege tanks and the Thors are the only units that are left over, no real Hellbat support. That means that the Lings that are fully upgraded are gonna be able to do a lot of damage. Ling Bane Roach apparently is gonna be the transition right here at the 25-minute mark. None of this makes sense. These are early game units. Yet for some reason, they're gonna be the transition that soO is looking for. Planetary Fortress will finish up in the bottom right-hand corner. I don't think there's gonna be enough right here for the Zerg player to clean up that base. But Clem, he's broke as a joke. He doesn't have the money anymore to really produce any units, so he decides to tap out. What a crazy game. That really was an odd one. That really was... Like, that kind of felt like 2021 StarCraft to me, okay? That felt kind of like a game that was a year ahead of the actual meta. It all started with that triple evo of soO. Normally, you can't really make the transition from like Roach, Ravager, Ling, Bane to watch Ultras very easily, because Ultras really only are good when they have fully upgraded carapace. So you gotta get their armor upgrades as early on as you possibly can, right? So normally, it only really happens that you see an Ultralisk transition after it's been Ling, Bane upgrades, but basically, when you play Roach, Ravager, Ling Bane, you go missile and melee upgrades. When you play Ling Bane, say like with Hydra support, you go melee and armor upgrades. Long story short, because of the fact that the triple evo was activated pretty early on, soO could make the transition to watch those Ultras pretty quick as well, because the Ultras just simply had their upgrades much quicker. And it kind of like spiraled into this very strange game where Zerg ended up defeating a Terran Mech player in the late game, which is honestly something that I haven't seen too much recently. Very, very cool. I mean, over the last couple of casts, it kind of feels like I've seen the Thors in particular just gun down everything that Zerg has. Maybe going Ultras against Mech is the answer? I'm not entirely sure. It seems like it's not a strategy that makes sense on paper, but for some reason, soO managed to make it work. I'm gonna have to see more of this. I hope we can see more of games like this over the next couple of months, because this was very interesting. But regardless, I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, hit that like button down below. If you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Special shout out to the Patreon supporters. Thank you very much for the generosity. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile or write, and I will see you once again in the next one.